how do we want to start this? I mean, headline is that Bitcoin, the stable coins, the NFT markets are just in complete free fall. And I mean, we'll talk about some of the technicalities here. I mean, I will say, Matt and I, we've been on this beat for a while. I mean, pretty early on Left Reckoning, we were very critical of Bitcoin. And this is a tough moment because, you do have that kind of human impulse to want to be like, haha, I told all of y'all that this was a house of cards. But the reason that we were so motivated by it, like if it was just like, okay, there's internet weirdos, like we do a segment on it because we love to dunk on weird internet folks. But that would probably be it. But we devoted a lot of time to it because not only did we see it was a scam and it was silly, but we knew that it was going to end up hurting people. And that's the real tragedy of this moment, that it's not as much the whales, though they're suffering too. It's really the people who got in at the height of the hype who are getting screwed over right now.
Yeah, and the way it is just like an attention suck towards like things that people do need to be addressed. People's futures and like the material comfort of them is a problem in this country.
Totally.
And we had this frankly, I don't know, some weird fucking project here by crypto people that sucked all of like energy that should have gone towards collective organizing around those ideas into the speculative mania, and that is
Totally.
like balloon to a size where like I'm concerned this is like this seems like a big problem, a societal problem. And
Totally.
I'm not economics expert, but like you look at this from CNBC here, 40% of Bitcoin investors are now underwater, new data shows. Bitcoin is off nearly 55% from its November peak, and 40% of holders are now underwater in their investments, according to new data. And last month alone, 15.5% of all Bitcoin wallets fell into unrealized losses. The world's most popular cryptocurrency plunged to the $31,000 level, tracking tech stocks. And then there's this third bullet point, which I mean, really just Bitcoin's close correlation to NASDAQ challenges the argument that the cryptocurrency functions as an inflation hedge.
Oh, yeah.
Let me tell you what I think of any argument made in support of cryptocurrency. It's a lie in trying to boost a speculative asset. It's just a lie. And some people might believe it because like the price go up for a while and look at this, right? It was always peddled by people who should have frankly known better.
Dude, I mean, like, we've made this point time and time again, but like if you look at what happened in the US when before the stock market crash, you can find newspaper clippings where it's stuff like everybody should get invested in stocks because it's a sure thing. The stock market is just going to continue to go up, 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 up. And what ended up happening was the people at the top, they suffered losses, but many of them were insulated enough. And it was really, the kind of middle class or maybe, a more well-off worker who ended up losing absolutely everything in that system. And like, it's the same shit with Bitcoin. I mean, the argument that like that it's a hedge against inflation is complete BS. As they were noting there with the relationship with NASDAQ, but also remember why this is happening. This sell-off happened because of Federal Reserve policy to raise interest rates to try to curb inflation in the United States, right? And that ended up creating a massive sell-off in Bitcoin. So this whole idea that it was insulated from like the global economy is complete BS. And two, it again highlights one of the points that we made time and time again on this program, that the only reason that things like this exist and the only reason that tech stocks are so completely hyper inflated is because there has been a regime of cheap money in this country ever since the financial crisis, which means that wealthy people have too much money on their hands, and the rate of return on investment is low in most other kind of typical investment schemes, right? Because if you're investing just generally in production, like you'll get some return, but it's not much, and that has continued to shrink. I highly suggest people read Aaron Beninoff's book on automation. I can't remember the title right now, where he really breaks down, one of the big threats that we're facing right now is that threats because of the questions of what capital is going to do in response to this, that there has been a really falling rate of the rate of return on investment has been falling across the globe, right? And what happens in that situation is then you want to find ways to put your money into more and more speculative assets that have the potential of rising very, very quickly so that you can get a higher rate of return on your investment. And Bitcoin and NFTs and Facebook stock and Tesla stock and all that shit is all 100% connected to that phenomenon, right? So you're seeing this crisis right now happening because the cheap money era is signaling that it might be slowing down, if not ending altogether. And you're seeing people who have a little bit more understanding of these things and know why they're invested in these things, pulling their money out of those systems. And in a system like Bitcoin, which effectively is only goes one way, right? Because Bitcoin is a useless asset. The only thing that's of value to it is the idea that maybe you could sell it to somebody for more profit in the future, right?
Right.
That means that when money's coming in, things are very good. But whenever there's any kind of downturn or crisis, it moves much faster than even like a stock price falling in a company, even like a Facebook, which again is highly speculative in nature itself. They at least have some kind of fundamentals to the business that they can sort of lean on in the end. Bitcoin doesn't have that opportunity. So when people start moving money out of it, it starts to crash very, very quickly.
Yeah, and there's this line here in this CNBC article. Bitcoin is off nearly 55%, and 40% of holders are now underwater on their investments, according to new
Mm,
data from Glassnode. That percentage is even higher when you isolate for the short-term holders who got skin in the game in the last 6 months, when the price of Bitcoin peaked at around $69,000. Now, what was going on around 6 months ago? Well, there was this ad which came out that I'm sure we played on this show, that I think really like, and think about this, like, again, just remember the people who got in recently are the ones who got really screwed.
yeah.
This
History
was
is filled
October
with
28th.
almosts, with those who almost adventured, who almost achieved, but ultimately, for them it proved to be too much. Then there are others.
And then you got the Los Angeles Lakers renaming their arena crypto.com arena. You got, and I think this needs to be a problem because, like, I'm not somebody who, like, I think there's a issue with trolling celebrities over their social justice stuff, and
Yeah.
I think like the what's his name, the Boston Celtics, Eric Enos Cantor is talking about, like,
Yeah.
hey, why don't you talk about the Uyghurs all the time, right? Like, but I think there is a problem with this boosting of this stuff because, like, I love Steph Curry, I love Shaquille O'Neal. Uh, this ad here, I'm just thinking about, like, the impressionable folks who see these people as role models to a certain
Hmm.
extent, because that's why they like to position themselves, and thinking like, okay, the world is a scary place. What do I need to do for my family? And you see ads like this.
This is Steph Curry, the world's leading expert on cryptocurrency.
I'm not.
He's not making pasta, he's printing crypto.
No,
He mines Bitcoin from a giant block of ice.
definitely not.
Okay, quit messing around, man. Give me some tips on crypto.
No.
But you are an expert, right?
No, I'm not an expert, and I don't need to be. With FTX, I have everything I need to buy, sell, and trade crypto safely.
Can you at least teach me how to shoot free throws?
So many things wrong with that there, right? Like the implication that, hey, if you have concerns about this crypto stuff, it's that it's so, like, complex, right? But also because, like, you're mining crypto, they allude to how complex this stuff can be. But look, we have something that can open this market to everyone, so you can
Hmm.
safely trade this thing that's gonna fucking collapse in price in a few weeks. And we saw it with Cory Booker too, saying, like, the pace of the government doesn't move at the pace of innovation, and we can't get in the way of this stuff, and acting like, but the thing is, we do need to protect people from fraud. This entire thing is fraud. This entire
Yeah.
thing is fraud, and people are going to get wiped out for it.
No, and like that was the thing that was so cynical, like sinister about, like, especially these last 6 months, when it started to not just be like, hey, here's a game that we're playing and a lot of us are winning, joined up, to this is an easy thing and you're an idiot for not participating in this highly speculative market with no kind of guardrails or no real regulation. We'll get to that in a second, because there is also blame, I think, that has to go to the regulators on this as well. But I mean, yeah, Booker, fuck, the mayor of Austin, Steve Adler's like, was like, we're going to invest money in researching ways that we can use Web3. LeBron James was starting up a charity to train young people in Web3 technology so that they could get in on this boom. I mean, it was, I mean, I'm talking about like it was like the distant past. I mean, this is all very recent shit. Um, and there was really no check on it because all the people on the outside saying, hey, this is dangerous, were treated as if like, oh well, you're just jealous because you're a non-coiner, right, is what they love to call us, right? Or we're just poor and jealous because we're not raking in the big bitcoin butts bitcoin bucks, which again is telling because you always want to turn Bitcoin into money. You don't want to be holding Bitcoin at the end of the day. And like you're even seeing, and like especially what Curry was just pushing right now, right there, I think is some of the worst stuff. Not to be like a big believer in the crypto project, but what ended up happening when you had these kind of exchanges holding Bitcoin for you, it created an untenable situation in any kind of situation of downturn where like a lot of the people who, when you were noting in the article, Matt, were latecomers. These weren't people who were buying Bitcoin like on the open like Bitcoin exchanges. These were people who were going to a firm to basically give you an IOU, a piece of paper that says you will purchase and control Bitcoin for you and hold it for you, and we'll give you money. You give us money to do that, and then we'll give you money on the way out. And the problem is that system is not set up for a big sell-off, and that's why so many people are getting completely screwed over because they're not even able to exit at the moment that they want to. They're sort of having to wait in line as the price continues to plummet. And there's all of these huge fees that are associated with that. These firms don't do it out of the goodness of their heart to hold your Bitcoin for you. They charge you massive fees. So people, on top of just like the actual loss to the Bitcoin IOU that they held, they're also facing fees from these providers. I mean, it's absolutely despicable. And also remember, I mean, we were talking about Palestine earlier. I mean, people were really hyping this shit up as if it was going to be a solution for people who were unbanked or didn't have access to financial services, right? I mean, imagine what happens to poor people. Hell, we don't have to imagine. Let's look at crypto's favorite boy, Nayib Bukele, the president of El Salvador, who's out here. This is 2 days ago as this was happening. El Salvador just bought the dip, 500 coins at an average price of $30,000, 744. Well, just from then to today, we're talking, somewhere near like $1 million loss for the national treasury of that country, right? People, that is not a country where, I mean, I do still hold the Michael Parenti line. There aren't poor countries and rich countries. There are poor people and rich people, but that is a country where a lot of people are living in poverty. And this guy is playing games with their national economy so that he can look fun online to people. I mean, it is absolutely absurd, and it has real serious knockdown effects for everyday people in that country.
Yeah, I mean, we're probably due for another
No, for
Bukele.
sure, because he's been up to it from killing people. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
But yeah, I mean that it is just so, it's like the very like actual serious things he's doing on the ground there versus this fucking meme lord go to Bitcoin conferences and buy the dip online thing. It's so dystopian, honestly. It's like if you would have extrapolated the alt right from like the mid 2010s to like
That's
what
what it
would
would look
that
like.
look like if it was a leader, it's like that's Bukele.
And like, let's also not forget that most people in El Salvador have opted out of that system because it's been an absolute disaster. I mean, could you imagine? I mean, think about if your bank account today, right, was 50% less than it was a week ago. I mean, how damaging would that be to your life? And that's the kind of system that these people are trying to prop up him, to some success, not in the sense of it like making returns for people, but actually that they created something there. To all these little freaks out there who were saying things like we need Palestine to get on Bitcoin and crypto. I mean, just filled with ghouls. And I think you're right, Matt. That there needs to be a hell of a lot of accountability, especially for people. I mean, I don't think that we should be too patient with rich celebrities, but especially people in politics, because a lot of people, when they saw, for example, Hillary Clinton, being against Bitcoin, they then took that as an argument for that they should be for it, which is absolutely insane. All the people who tried to paint this with the veneer of social justice or progress or something like that, those people need to be treated with, if not just contempt, the utmost suspicion going forward. Because this, again, you know, I want to do a little dance on some level, because I remember when we first did this, Matt. I mean, like, not trying to be like, oh,
Yeah.
we're the cool guys or anything like that, but like everybody now, I'm not everybody, but a lot of people now are especially on the left, are pretty
Mhm.
well versed in the criticism of Bitcoin. But when we first did that, I think a lot of our audience got it, but we also had a lot of people who were furious at us, saying we don't understand the system. It's actually good, and we just love the central bank system and the petrodollars, they love to call it, right? And there was a period of time when a lot of people weren't willing to actually do the work to see through this shit. Um, and uh, it's so there's a part of you where it just wants to be like, I told you so. But then the reason that we were so motivated by this is because we knew that it's always normal people who end up holding the bag in these kind of
Yep.
crises, in the same way that it was in the financial crisis. They try to make it seem like the financial crisis was something we all felt equally. No, rich people got taken care of, the banks got taken care of. I mean, what did Obama say to the banks? I'm the one standing between you and the pitchforks right now, and you should be praising me, right?
Yeah.
Those guys get taken care of, and the people who are heavily invested and have lots of money in this thing are going to be fine. But it is those people who put the $10,000 that they might have had in savings into something like this, because they were told by a lot of people that this is a sure thing,
It's the
and that's
future in
dangerous.
all sorts of ways. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, I got this Cory Booker clip. I think we just
yeah.
replay this to show like the way politicians, and the thing that's so interesting to me about this is the way he's like the emphasis on fraud sort of gives the game, like they knew some, like
Yeah.
I feel like it's a way of speaking to folks, and the crypto believers will hear what they want to hear from this. But when a politician says like we need to do stuff to make sure people are protected, he's giving himself an out for if that shit crashes.
Yeah.
So here's Cory Booker.
Moving the lack of urgency that we act in this space. I think that we can create a more sensible regulatory framework. I've always been concerned about, with technology moving, the lack of government's ability to move at the speed of technology undermines the ability for Americans to apply this technology. I came into the Senate on the Commerce Committee, and I remember the FAA was regulating drones in such a horrible way that other countries like France were using drones for dangerous missions, from fixing poles and wires to doing mining work, where we in the United States were still seeing death rates that could have been avoided with technology, but the FAA was so over-regulated.
Sorry, but invoking death. like
Yeah.
maybe we're getting in the way of technology that could save lives, as opposed to like the thing with drones. It's like, oh, another country's demonstrating a practical use. I made this point last time, but anyway, maybe that's enough of that.
No, but like the thing about Cory, Cory Booker in particular, and a lot of those people, again, like they really need to be held to account, because what's Cory arguing for there? He's arguing for the state and the regulators to get out of the way. They weren't doing shit from the get-go. This is something from Doug Henwood,
Yeah.
early on, Doug was right on this. And just warn people, this is talking about suicide. But Sebastian Murdoch is has some quotes and screenshots of people who are suicidal because they've lost everything on these kind of scams. And Doug, again, I think like us is like, I mean, Doug's smarter than us. He's been writing on this more prolifically than us, but like, as somebody who came out early and a lot of people got pissed at him for it, but was right on it. And, it's not a really gleeful moment, really. It's like Doug says, this is sad. Crypto was a disaster waiting to happen, and regulators let it go.
Yes.
And that's the big point here. In the same way that, remember what happened with GameStop at the beginning of the pandemic? All the technology, and David Gerard makes the same point. A lot of people make the same point that, these new kind of financial technologies don't really innovate in any kind of way of like creating something new of value. What they usually do is they find a way to create something that might be confusing to regulators or new to regulators, so that the typical regulations on financial products don't apply or are not enforced against them. And it is so true of Bitcoin and these stable coins and all of these different systems that the US regulators who are supposed to the kind of games that were being played with Bitcoin, like products that were attached to Bitcoin, these exchanges and all this kind of stuff, that wouldn't fly in a kind of typical financial product. Don't get me wrong, Wall Street's still a casino, all that kind of stuff. But there are rules, especially rules that are designed to make sure that like household investors, people who are investing their savings, small amounts of money, people who don't have the ability to lose, at that extreme rate, are not being sold a bunch of nonsense that volatile assets that will ruin their lives. And yeah, we can focus on the Bitcoin people, and I think we absolutely should, but there also needs to be a lot of finger pointing at the regulators who were completely asleep at the wheel, despite what a United States senator was saying, that they were doing too much at that period of time. I mean, it is truly a very gloomy situation. This is just maybe to make one more kind of technical point. I think Grace Blakely also really lined this out well. Tracy Alloway makes this point here that one way to think of crypto is as the purest momentum play under the sun. Everything is backed by inflow. So that means cash is coming in, which attract more inflows in a feedback loop. When flows reverse, right, which is what's happening now when people are trying to sell, it's painful because there's no natural re-entry point or circuit breaker on this kind of falling. And Grace has made this point a while back with crypto. There can be no correction to fundamentals because there are no fundamentals. This is also what explains the cult-like aspect of it. If the price purely reflects what everyone believes about the thing, right? That's what capitalists always say. Investors will be very keen to make sure everyone does actually believe in the thing. And I mean, from everything from, the goofy rap songs to crypto land and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it was cultish, and that should have been a signal to a lot of people what was going on underneath the hood. But yeah, just like financially, we're not even talking about the blockchain technology yet. Though, I mean, I don't know if we have to because we've done so much on that. But just like financially, as a financial product, this was always set up to not be able to survive any kind of big shock like this. And remember, it's not just Bitcoin itself; it's also the so-called stable coins, right? Which were supposed to be pegged to the dollar, right? So that they were supposed to be things that were not going to be volatile. And this chart here is about Terra. But there were other stable coins that you saw, stable coins that again were supposed to be 1-to-1 to the US dollar, that were trading at 20 cents on the dollar. I mean, yeah.
Can I ask you, like, did the concept of stablecoins ever seem to you to be anything more than another lie?
No, I mean, it was crap. I mean, and Facebook was trying to do that with, was it Libra or Lira? I can't remember which one it was. Libra, I think. And that was an extremely volatile and frightening kind of game that they were playing. And, luckily regulators were a little bit quicker moving on that to realize that they didn't want Facebook to be able to hold that much money on speculative assets. But yeah, even like the most stable coins, aren't able to survive this thing. Because again, there is no real safety mechanism. It's all hoopla. It's all kind of smoke and mirrors. And it's based on it relies on a kind of cultish belief that this system will always work. I mean, going all the way back to like the buy the dip kind of thing. That is like it at its most desperate. Don't get me wrong. But that's trying to get inflows when there shouldn't be any inflows into something that's just losing value like that. Right. And even still, I mean, the psychos are still out there saying, I was reading some tweets earlier, I didn't save them, but people who are heavily invested in this saying like, this is like the .com bubble. And you don't want to be one of those idiots who freaked out about eBay in 1999 and then, lose everything when, in 10 years, it'll be worth way, way, way more.
Yeah. That's from the argument that this is the same as the internet itself.
Yeah.
Honestly, the largest communications invention since fucking Gutenberg, that this dumbass, again, what cryptocurrency is in like the best sort of light is triple entry bookkeeping, which is extra layer of redundancy over double entry bookkeeping that like basically helped capitalism form like the modern world. Triple factory is unnecessary in my opinion. Like you see them mention things like the double payments problem. It's like that seems like a problem for large scale capitalists and really nobody else, in my opinion. And it seems very minor, and it seems like something the courts can deal with. But you mentioned Facebook, and unless you have somewhere to go, I just want to
No, I just wanted to say just really quick because somebody's asking in the chat. Tommy wants to know what we mean by stable coin.
Mhm.
If it's a hard peg to the dollar. So the way that they do that is that they have algorithms that are sort of controlling the flow of internal currency within their market. And the ones that were reliant more on those algorithms were the ones that were the hardest hit to an increase, to basically US dollar inflation and then the kind of panic that set in after interest rates were raised. So, yeah, the systems themselves, what was promised to people, they weren't able to actually, they were able to create that in theory. But in actual practice, when you see things that happen in the economy where things, we could say I couldn't have predicted when the big jump would have happened, though. Obviously, it makes a lot of sense now that rising interest rates were going to play a role. You know, these things never operate in that kind of perfect system, and those systems that they created were not able to basically react in the moment when you had inflation and then escape. When people were saying when there's inflation, right, that created problems for them, and a lot of people were trying to pull their money out at the exact same time, and it created this crisis where, as I was saying, 20 cents on the dollar bullshit, insane.
Yeah, and so in February of this, again, like if you look at these past since November as just a desperate attempt by this industry to seek newer suckers, we had
Mm-hmm.
this from Randy Zuckerberg, who is Mark Zuckerberg's sister, and she had a crypto project of her own that was about like pro intersectionality and stuff like that. So
Oh yeah,
here's
fuck this shit.
We're all gonna make it. Yeah, we're all gonna make it. We're all gonna make it, everyone.
Dark, man.
again, 40% of Bitcoin holders are underwater. So no, actually not. Not everyone's going to make it. A lot of people are going to be wiped out in a way that's going to be brutal. In a way that, frankly, look, we got some members of the squad in the House Oversight Committee, which is frankly a place that Nancy Pelosi likes to keep them, so they can make strong media sort of like interrogating people, bring them but not really make any decisions on like budgets or stuff like that. But I want to see people like this pulled in front of Congress and talk about this sort of shit, because it is. We went through the fucking Nationals. I gotta find this. The Washington Nationals tweeted out an ad recently.
Oh yeah, please, if you can find that, that was something else.
It's like this is a sickness. This is a sick society. Like say, regardless of like all the trouble that America's gone through, like culturally, at least previously we were like idealizing things like the Hoover Dam. This
Mhm.
idea that we've just been obsessed over this bullshit, and it's gonna wipe people out I mean, it's really a sign of rot, I think. Let me find
Yeah, and on top of this, like again, like maybe just arming people, equipping them for the future. When something can be a million things to a million different people, you should know that it's a problem. When Mark Zuckerberg's sister can see this as a great version of what third wave feminism stuff, right? And
Yeah.
like we're gonna end the boys club of crypto, and then far right fascists see this as a way that they can build the white nation that they've been dreaming of, and then socialists are saying that this is a way that we can decommodify housing, and then this is also a way that we can get human rights for people in Palestine and unbanked people in Africa and India. You should be worried when people are making these kind of golden and glittering claims about this. That is just the anatomy of a scam through and through.